Hello everybody, this is Mark with Pelican Wooden Things. Today I intend to make a yarn bowl, and like all yarn bowl traditionalists, I will reach for the standard yarn bowl making tool, a splitting maul. The idea is to take those pieces I've split off the elm log and put them in a mold with some resin and make a yarn bowl out of that. So I will construct myself a mold using foam core, and I'd like to use this box tape. It won't stick to the resin. I'm going to cover all sides of the mold with the box tape. Oh, and of course, spray a little mold release on them before I put the resin in. Since the pieces I split off the log are 8 or 9 inches long, I will be cutting them down to about 6 inches in length to fit in the mold. Going to fill the mold up with this red tinsel and the pieces of elm, kind of a elm tinsel lasagna. To keep it from floating when I add the resin in, I will hold it down with some box tape and that spare piece of wood there. That's not going to be part of the project, that little piece on top. If you don't do this, it will definitely float as you add the resin. Had a little resin left over from my previous project, so I thought I'd pour that in, let that set. In the end, it took me 3 pours to get it completely full. After the first one, I wanted to do the major pour, get it like most of the way full, let that set, and a lot of that was absorbed into the wood, and so I had to do an additional pour to fill it up completely. At this point, there's enough resin in there. I don't need that piece on top anymore, but I do need to fill it up. So 1 more pour. I need to cut the rough, uneven part off the top and then drill a hole so I can mount it on the blank circle cutting jig and then later onto my worm screw. As usual at this point in a project, I will mount it on the worm screw and start turning it round and getting my basic beginning shape. A yarn bowl is basically a truncated globe where the top part is cut off to provide the opening that the ball of yarn will fit into. Here's a little real-time cutting. You can see as I make my cuts, as I begin the cuts, I will put the back of the tool, not the cutting edge, but very close to the cutting edge, let it run against the surface of the piece I'm cutting, and then I will move it slightly to pick up the cutting edge. And as I go around the curve, the tool will angle to keep the consistent angle against the surface. First, take the back of the tool, then bring it down slightly so the cutting edge catches in there and begins to cut. And as it goes around the curve, the back of the tool will swing around just enough to keep that cut consistent and clean. This is called riding the bevel. It will give you the smoothest cut this tool is capable of. I will be using this Forstner bit to cut a mortise out of the bottom of the bowl so I can flip this around and hollow out the other side. What you see me creating right now is the bottom of my yarn bowl. I decided it needed a little additional reshaping, so you'll see me as I said, reshape a bit, and then I'll have to actually cut the tenon a little bit deeper. The reshaping ended up squaring up the bottom a little bit more, making it a little more concave. It's about at this point I begin to realize that I made my blank too long anyway. I would end up with an egg shape rather than an oval, or an oval rather than a sphere. And for a yarn bowl, you need a sphere. So I'm going to be trimming this a little shorter throughout the rest of this video until I get what I want. After sanding through the grits up to 800 grit and then using some abrasive paste, I end up with a very nice finish. Look at that. Very pretty. Although, don't mistake this for the final sanding at all. There's always more sanding to do until you're done with the project. As you can see from the right-hand end, I've already shortened it at least another inch. That's not the last time I'll be shortening it either. Once I begin to hollow it out, I realize that the hole is too small for a ball of yarn, so I'm going to be shortening it one more time later on in this video. As you can see, it flew off the lathe and there is some damage. I'm going to have to be fixing that. It's not that uncommon, especially when using wood resin combo at the different densities. You never know where it's going to fail. In this case, it was just the wood by itself, but the resin being so much harder, it may have contributed to the failure. So I'll recut the mortise with my Forstner bit and flip it back around, and hopefully we won't have any more issues. As you're hollowing it out, there's just go and go and go until you get it to depth, and then you feel around the edges for both the thickness of the vessel itself and for any bumps where you didn't make a smooth cut. So sometimes you just work an area over and over to work that little bump down and then make sure you're at depth and so on and so forth, just until you're satisfied with the results. This is where I realized that the vessel was too small. The opening was too small to fit a large ball of yarn, so I shortened it down again. Time for more sanding and to work my way through the micro mesh pads to get a nice glossy finish. Now that we've gotten to this point, we have to create the actual part that makes it a yarn bowl versus just a bowl. So you have to cut a swirl shape inside to capture the yarn and keep it flowing steadily, just like that. I drilled holes around the outside of the pattern, and then I used a rotary tool to carve out the remainder from the inside of the swirl. After using the rotary tool to fine-tune this and get rid of the extra little bumps and scrapes and so on and so forth, I'm going to work from 80 grit to do the final shaping, as you see here, and then all the way up to using the micro mesh pads and rubbing compound to really smooth it out. Once I've worked my way up to 300 grit, I will continue with wet sanding, both this and the micro mesh pads, and then onto the rubbing compound. Finally, it's time to blow it out, wipe it down, and to apply some finish. And lastly, time to leave my mark. And here's the final product. Let me know what you think of it in the comments. Would you like something like this for the yarn artist in your life? I know my yarn artist appreciates it. Thanks for watching.